welcome today to John and Tara from CGI. CGI are the gold sponsor for CyNam for 2021, and we're very, very excited to be kicking off the year with our first content piece, where we'll be exploring the topic of collaboration in a competitive world. This is all set with the backdrop at the moment of COVID-19 still raging, unfortunately, in a global recession, very difficult and challenging times for a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals, and also nation states becoming more isolationist and moving away from collaboration potentially, although today is also Joe Biden's inauguration day. So that's, depending on your viewpoint, a positive side to where we are on the global scene. Well, let's open up with a question for you, Tara, if I may, on how CGI are navigating what must be a very difficult balance at the moment of collaboration and competition, and collaboration versus competition, if you like, in the current climate.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. And just before I answer your question, we are thrilled to be your gold sponsor. It's very exciting for us, and everyone in CGI is very excited about the next year. So answering your specific question on collaboration, this year's been like no other for sure, but it's been like no other from a collaboration point of view for me. So we are one of the government's strategic suppliers, and we do a lot of work for them in central government, as well as space and defence intelligence, and also local government. But I've never felt closer to the government than I have done in the last year. We've lent in with lots of thoughts and ideas on how we can help out. We've been in the local authorities rolling out iPads to kids to get them busy at home. We've been helping hospitals setting up vaccination IT so that their centres are all ready to go. You know, our members, we call our staff members because we're all shareholders, actually. 95% of us have shares. So our members are very, very community minded. And as a result of it, I think, you know, we're coming out of the pandemic in a better headspace in terms of collaboration than before we went in. And that includes our partners as well. You know, we've been helping and in collaboration projects with other IT, mostly SMEs, to be honest with you, but coming up with ideas and white space and bits of software and linking them together and using the kind of brains of CGI and kind of the more some kind of creative white space ideas as well in order to bring solutions to our clients. So, I mean, it hasn't all been easy for sure. Selling in a world where you can't meet people is different, to be honest with you. But that doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means we needed to be a little lighter on our feet in terms of how we met new people. So we're spending more time having we call them special interest groups, but having topics where we invite new clients to come along and talk to us, much like we're talking to you today, about a topic to see whether or not there's anything we can do together. So we're trying more of that stuff, and obviously our existing clients have been fabulous. So, you know, we carry on working, and we've been lucky enough not to furlough anyone throughout the whole of the pandemic. So all 6,000 of us in CGI UK are all busy, and that's everybody from the security guys and the reception people and what have you. We've all kept busy. We might be doing something slightly different from what we thought we were going to be doing during the year, but we're all busy. So we feel like we've lent in and collaborated more, not less, I think would be my thought for you.
That's really interesting, and it's a fascinating part of what's happened with COVID, isn't it? Where the bottom line is that people have been physically restrained from seeing other people, from physically collaborating. So it's kind of forced people to reach out and collaborate virtually, and probably has heightened the need for that within any organization. John, asking you specifically, I mean, you know, Tara's just spoken about it, but CGI, like you said, fantastic success story in not having to furlough anybody during COVID, which is great. What kind of initiatives have CGI been doing to ensure that your different business areas within the organisation are maintaining close collaboration, are still working together whilst being physically apart?
Love it, Chris. A great question, Chris. Love it. I'm going to go back to my roots of coming from the military. Thinking about the one thing in my mind that has been the driver here is about the why, the shared purpose, the real driver behind this. if you flick to being in the military, that someone might be shooting at you. It's quite simple. You know exactly what the problem is. That scales up as bad as it could ever be, being a war of national survival. Now thinking of the COVID context, well, there isn't an enemy you're shooting at, but there is one thing that's hurting you, and hurting you nationally. So actually, you've now got a shared purpose of how do we stop that hurt on a national scale? And that's where I can hold hands. As Tara said the word, we reach out. You don't reach out to throttle the contractor, you reach out to offer a helping hand to a friend, to a colleague, to a competitor. And through doing that, you find those opportunities. And I think there's if I then bring it all the way down to right down to the tactical level, you'll say that an organization has decided that it's going to trim its budget, or it's got to do something in a different way because it cannot carry on the way it's going because of the COVID pandemic. And it says, well, actually, the consultants or whomever delivers, we don't need you. Could we take a 3-month holiday? Which is, if you're the customer, you're right, aren't you? What do we do now when you've got 10, 20, 100 people now who are not fee earning? Suddenly the revenue's not coming in. So how do you focus on that? And you use some really simple expressions. Tara used the word that I am a member of CGI. So every member counts. It doesn't matter what grade you are, we all count. So come on, directors, pull your fingers out. What work have we got for our people? I don't care where they're from. Let's use the talents and the skills of every single member. And if we're cutting across different industries and different sectors, so be it. Let's work in a more collaborative way and help us to against the purpose of supporting the nation effort.
Yeah.
I think I would pick up on that theme as well. I think what JW is talking about there is something that I'm seeing with CyNam. Look at this. This is the kind of panel that's going to be available to anybody to come and access. And we're seeing, thousands of people join the CyNam event. And to some extent, the kind of this little virus has had more impact on digital transformation than any change program had over decades. And we're seeing so much. We're more connected to each other, to a global community than we have ever before. And I love hearing some of those stuff, JW, about how it's just forcing us to innovate, and for want of a better word.
And time's on our side as well, isn't it? Those of us who, let's be honest, I spent most of my week driving or on a train or on a plane moving around the country, and our head office is in Canada, so traveling abroad a lot as well, and getting all of that time back it's been amazing actually. So having more time to think, for sure. I think we've all struggled a little bit with the day bleeding on a little bit longer than it would have done otherwise, and I know that as a country we're all trying to address that issue now, to try and give yourself a lunch hour, have a firm start and end time, but it still gives you a lot more time to do these sort of panels actually. Whereas before it might have been in person and might have involved a trip and what have you. Now you can jump on and do one of these and then do something else. I was in Hong Kong this morning, for example, so you can be around the world a lot more, and it's a lot more acceptable than it was before to do a lot more of that. So I think people have been kinder with their time since the pandemic's happened.
It'd be interesting to see if this has happened in CGI as well, though. I did see this tweet that said it is truly the case that meeting room availability was the only thing that was hindering us having meetings, and that certainly is the case in our little company. You just go boom, 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 bedtime. That was a difficult day. Is that the same at CGI?
That's true, but I do miss a coffee. I think I miss, obviously it's harder and harder to get a coffee now, but a nice coffee in a cup from someone who hasn't made it. So a cup that's not my own is a new measure.
I'm trying to find the secret to how do you change the settings in Microsoft Outlook so you don't have a 1 hour or a 30-minute meeting and they're 50 minutes or 25.
Yeah.
Some people need those couple of minutes. Just be useful.
It's very true, though, but you're absolutely right, and that need for human contact, I think, has been heightened. So you can, counterintuitively, actually, productivity can be affected where you spend 6 hours on Teams calls, all day long because you're busy talking to people so much. And actually, maybe there's an opportunity there for us to be. We're going over that hump of I need to spend time with people. Please, can somebody talk to me? To going right. I need to do some work now. Those 6 things that I put in my to-do list at the start of the day are still in my to-do list at the end of the day because I've spent 6 hours of just talking with people. Because we're now being forced into this situation where you are available and talking to people on a virtual basis and therefore much more contactable. So, is that...
I think you make a good point. Yeah.
Can I spark on that? Because it's one of those as a line manager, as I've led huge teams in the past, etc. You want to talk to people, have that interaction. How you doing? And suddenly an hour's disappeared. CGI tried something at the start on lockdown version 1, and it was called In This Together. Tara started it, and how often in your large companies do you see the back garden of your MD, your CEO, your president?
Yeah.
And next minute, all the senior P&L holders have done the same thing. A 2 or 3 minute video. Someone would have driven a lawnmower through the background. Something went wrong somewhere. It was real. And in 2 or 3 minutes, you got to know someone in your firm that you had no idea about their life before. And it got a bit of fun around cats and animals and the rest of it, but it was brilliant to actually get to know the people, and just as good as the meeting.
Yeah, it's sorry, Tara, go on.
No, I was going to say the videos as a format of talking to our members has become a lot more than it was before as well. We used to be a lot more formal in our communication. I think with Teams, the natural extension of Teams has been to do podcasts and videos as well, and we use all of those. And in fact, John was saying he's took part in the yoga at lunchtime session today. We had a full-on hundreds of people doing yoga. We got a proper yoga instructor, and everyone was like on their mat doing the yoga session sort of thing. So it's kind of taking Teams to the next level.
We're in jeans next time, I'll tell you.
But you're absolutely right. It's kind of it's forced a lens into the lives of senior executives, potentially board level leaders who have an air of mystique, and it's kind of it's shattered all those glass cases around individuals that you who are leading those organizations. Suddenly they are just people. They do have kids running in and out in the background. They are apologizing because, like you say, they're struggling with comms issues, or do you know what I mean? So it's humanized maybe that leadership team, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that's probably a good thing, actually. And for a company, Immersive Labs and Paul, I know your team are incredibly collaborative, Paul, and you all work together very, very hard to create that team ethos. With a company the size of CGI, that is almost virtually impossible to do. However, but now you've had the lens going directly into the MD's house, and suddenly they're a person that has thoughts and feelings and expressions rather than just being the figurehead and the untouchable potentially. So maybe this is a positive thing to bring the board and the senior leadership team back into actually the mainstream of the company.
And I feel I know more of the folks that work in the UK now than I did before, which might sound a bit odd, but I did do a little video, and I've done a few since actually on a few different topics, and people are a lot better at just getting directly in touch with me as a result of it, and they'll use chat on Teams and just ping me and say, I really like your video, or do you mind if we have a chat, etc. So I have a lot more direct contact with people I don't know. Maybe I was a little bit in a bubble before of talking to people I always talk to, so I think it's good for that.
Something I'm super interested in from a CGI perspective is how do you see creativity and the impact on perhaps some of the more creative aspects of your work? So something I worry about is that perhaps it's easy to look at the immediate impact, not talking to people. We've also talked a lot about some of the benefits of talking to more, and I have these random cups of tea sessions on a Friday where I go 15 with 15 minutes with random people, and I'm in and out of houses across the world. It's fantastic. But the creativity I worry about is suffering, and how much of that kind of longer term impact do you fear from some of your products and your services that perhaps maybe aren't getting that kind of nurture now that we might not see the impact for 6, 12, 18 months?
So let me have a go from a tactical point of view. Creativity's still very good. So we are solving instant problems technically, creatively at the moment. So something will come up and we'll do a little app for it, or we'll say, how can we solve this, how can we help our client here, and then people will get together and come up with something very quickly. And interestingly, our go-to-market on that stuff is phenomenally quick. So we rolled out Teams to one of the hospitals, and it would have taken 6-9 months because we discussed it with them. It took a weekend, and we all agreed we were just going to do it.
And is that the necessity that's driving that kind of war footing?
Exactly. The clinicians could not get hold of the records they needed, and they needed to be able to talk to patients at home without bringing them in because of COVID and all that stuff. So the need was so high to roll it out that the risk register was still there, but the risks were all a lot more acceptable than they were before. So we just went for it, and actually we had a bumpy week of calls to the desk, and after that everybody learned on the job, like a lot of people did. So tactically I'd totally say that we were on it. Strategically, I share your worry. So I'm not sure we're sitting in like we would have done before to talk about what's happening in the next 3 or 5 years and getting in a room and talking about that. I think that's the bit of creativity that maybe has taken a bit of a hit because of the pandemic.
It's fantastic to hear, though, that kind of war footing. And I saw this when I was at GCHQ, that the GCHQ can sometimes, it's the civil service department, it can drift a little bit. As soon as there's an issue, it moves like absolute lightning. And it's fantastic to hear that CGI had been doing that. Do you think that those lessons can continue? Do you think you'll, post-pandemic, you'll be like, we can take these risks, or
we can't
whatever?
unknow what we know now. So I think we can never really tell ourselves it will take 9 months to do something that we know we did in a weekend.
Yeah.
So and therefore that lesson I think will stay with us all, that maybe we overthought things as an industry, and that projects were maybe overly planned and overthought and should be risk. It's all a vector, isn't it? And maybe our appetite for risk should be a little higher than it was, and our acceptance that we can learn on the hoof a little bit. I think that we can't unlearn that. And I'm glad about that. So I think we will do more things quickly. All of us. I think our clients will. A lot of my clients, what they're telling me is, coming out of this, digital is an absolute must now. It's not a nice to have. And if you think about a number of my clients are local authorities who have a lot of issues with reduced budgets and lots of things going on that mean it's difficult for them, but at the same time they've still got a lot of interactions with citizens around just the day-to-day running of a town or a city. That they need smart cities is never more important than it is right now. You need to be able to digitalize your interaction with your clients, if you will. So I think we're seeing a lot of that work now, and I think that will only get quicker, and we won't have 1, 2, 3, 4 years to plan that stuff. I think we're going to have to do lots of small drops of things in order to improve people's lives quickly, and also help the councils with budgets, etc., because the money is not there, is it, going forward? We know that a lot of money's been spent.
I pull on that, and I want to go back to what you said, Paul, about 6 hours of back-to-back sort of Teams calls. And as Tara said there, we can get the energy, the inspiration, the creativity. It's working. It's a buzz. Everyone's bang, 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 go, go, go. And it's really high tempo. It's brilliant. But then when do we turn around and say, Chris, you've been quiet. Are you all right? And you just reach out and look after each other. That mental health view, that individual view. You've got to get the balance between the team, the individual, and the task, and trying to get that equilibrium is so important to maintain in our sites.
Do you think, so we're now working in a virtual world, you've already mentioned the word digitalization, every company is now embracing virtual workforces. Do you think that the majority of big businesses are going to continue, for me in my day job, the companies that are going to be most successful in 2021, 2022 and beyond are those that are going to come to the realization that going backwards is not a way forwards. That right, we're all going to go back into the office as soon as we can. That'd be lovely. We've all got laptops now. We've all set up the infrastructure that for years and years we've had the opportunity to actually put in place, but it's been through absolute necessity. It's been forced upon us, this rapid digitalization of major enterprises like CGI. Come the autumn, when we hope that things are dissipating, that the vaccines are working, that the opportunity and that maybe the temptation is to go back to a previous way of working in 2019, where you've got offices of hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and that could be a massive missed opportunity, especially for bigger businesses, where suddenly we are able to embrace flexible working patterns. We are able to think more creatively about how we are in more able to engage more diverse and inclusive hiring strategies. Do you think this is here to stay, or do you think it's going to end up being some kind of hybrid model where you're working in the office a couple of days a week, maybe working from home? What's CGI's plan?
Well, certainly I can talk to CGI's plan in the UK, and that is very much that we like the fact that our members are enjoying more of a balance. Obviously, it's gone a bit too far towards just being at home and on their own, but I think it won't ever flip back to being full-time in the office, to be honest with you. I think it will be a blend. I think I'm going to push more to having more and more local, smaller offices, and maybe even just collaboration spaces with our clients. So looking to share spaces. The fact that we work with so many councils, etc., having a little bit of space in one of their offices would give them a bit of income. We can set ourselves up. It would allow us to see them, see our, drop in, see our own folk, etc. So, I'm thinking more smaller offices, more of a blend between a bit of time at home, a bit of time in the office, a bit of time at client site, a little bit more organising your day so that you don't just travel for 7 hours in the day for a 1 hour meeting. I think that's gone for us all now. I think, so
thank goodness.
Yeah, so I think so too. A better plan to your day, a little bit more blend of, what is important. I think the pandemic has reminded us all that we do actually like our families and we do like having dinner at home. So, most
of the time. Depends if you can lock the office door.
But maybe a little bit more than we did. So, I'm thinking something around having more smaller office drop-in areas, more kind of maybe collaboration spaces, where they don't belong to CGI, but a number of like-minded companies share them. Obviously, we have security and issues that mean that in some areas that won't be appropriate. But for a lot of our work, it will be actually. And even in the higher security areas, my challenge would be back to you guys to think of the same and think maybe companies with similar minds could do something similar and meet the security requirements as well. So I think we will push along on this journey now. Certainly me and my team are talking about that and how we can, some of the leases on the big premises we've got coming up in the next 18 months. I've said, look, no instant rollover on that. Let's have a hard look about what's right. Let's do a heat map on where we all live in that area, and let's see if maybe rather than having one big office, we go for 3 or 4 pop-up offices that work for our members, mean that they can go in and be within, that magic 10 miles from your house thing. That means you can go somewhere a couple of days, see a client a couple of days, work at home a day, a couple of days, something, work the pattern for you that works for you and your family. I think certainly for CGI, and that's not altruism on my part. If I want to keep my members happy, then I need to come up with a pattern that works for them as well as for me and for my clients, and that feels to me where it's going right now.
I think it's the CyNam point that I think you were getting to, Chris, about getting to the autumn and there's an opportunity to go back. I think it's we start phase 2, and that is because of the picture behind Paul on the wall, working high side, meeting the security requirements. At the moment, I may truck for an hour to go and log into something high side and go and do something with someone. Wouldn't that be good if I could do that in exactly the same room as I am right now? That cannot be impossible to crack. So how do we take this to the next level? And then we could really sort of leverage the advantage we've had over this first sort of 9 months.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
The in-person collaboration, it's really great to hear CGI talking about that, because something that I saw when I was in London, been in London, looking at things like Google's Tech Hub, Tech Campus in Shoreditch, that kind of principle that you put a lot of different companies, and with CGI as a big player in this environment, it's great to hear that it's not just the little 1, 2 man, 5 man bands that do that. With CGI's presence in those kind of collaboration spaces, the serendipity of different connections, and like you'd bump into somebody over a coffee in the tea point and go, hey, well, what are you working on? I was looking at this. Oh, actually, can I show you this cool thing? And it gives this really just those kind of moments. That's the kind of moments that really give us step change. And if you look at this at a UK PLC level, the idea that we can then increase productivity, companies grow under the wings of bigger providers that have the big contracts, and the idea that the community can come in and play nicely together, that is the way that we build like co-opetition, as people like to call it, where there's cooperation, collaboration, but in a competitive market environment.
Yeah, co-opetition.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that.
Are you allowed to? You're going to have to copyright that quickly.
I don't think it's. I think it's stolen it. I have stolen it. I'm
sure. Was it a
co-opetition, like competition and collaboration together.
Co-opetition space. So it's not a collaboration space anymore.
Look, I mean, and JW's point about the fact that high side collaboration, I felt the pain. I mean, I couldn't even look at my calendar like when I was at home. Like, who knows what I was supposed to be doing that particular day? There were times I turned up in work and be like, oh crap, I've got something really important, but I'm like dressed like a student. Like the whole that even those little moments, JW, you've got to be like, please God, let them fix that.
So let's talk very briefly, if we may, about sort of a collaboration that CGI are doing at the moment with SMEs, high growth companies like Immersive Labs and others in the space, and how you're garnering, I guess, those really key strategic relationships on a smaller basis, as well as looking at internal ways to innovate and to create those moments of serendipity where things come together, collide, and create new opportunities. So, JW, do you want to start talking to us about what you're doing from the collaboration viewpoint, partnering with other interesting smaller companies?
Definitely. And there's a real motivation here from the government, because there's a government view that the only SMEs can provide that fresh idea and spark, and I don't think they're right. But actually, I do want to work, because there's some brilliant fresh ideas come from some tiny companies. And I'll probably give you two stories. The first one being sort of the bad news, and that was I tried to work with a very, very small company of 10 people who were doing something that was incredibly edgy. But from a financial risk perspective, they were a disaster. And I said, well, I can reach out and I can put my arm out and I can provide you all the List X sort of facilities, and we can protect you, we can give you all of that, but you've got to meet me halfway and at least share something with me so I can trust that the bills get paid. We're not going to. And we decided at the end of the day to say, actually, there was too much risk in that particular one. We've kept in touch. The word is trust, and in every possible sense, all these questions, I will sew the golden thread of trust through all of it. Break. I'll go to the second story, and I'll go to another company. It's an SME company. I won't embarrass them by mentioning that; just be unfair, because it's not Immersive Labs, I guess. But I'm doing a little bit of work with them, and actually for CGI, as Tara said, 6,000 people. I'm their subcontractor, and they're little more than 100 people. And what does that give that company? They've got an enormous breadth and depth of skills they could mine and use to scale up to help them. We can balance the risk. We can make it work commercially. In every possible way, it's a win-win-win. And so I look at it through that prism of win-win. If I'm ever looking at a win-lose, you're going to destroy trust. You might be able to do something in the short term, but you will fail in the long term. If you can look at something in a win-win, even when things go wrong, it ends up as a lose-lose. You still have the trust, because you know how you got to the bad place you're in. But set it up as a win-win, build the trust, know each other. I guess there was another failure I had in there. I really shouldn't share this as brand new news in front of my company president, should I? And it was, if you go back to, there was an expression that was created in about 1965. It was called forming, storming, norming, performing. And I went for this competition. And I got 7 companies together. 5 of them were SMEs, and I thought, I can do this. I've got this in the bag, and I smashed this, and we failed. And I need the feedback, because I've properly got the tail between my legs, and I'm not very happy now. Why did we fail? And we didn't believe you. And do you know what? They were right. When I looked at it, I thought, we formed. We were storming on the morning of the presentation. We were nowhere near norming. So the risk that the end client was looking at was, that's too high risk. We'll go with someone else who had actually spent a bit more time together and built a bigger trust. And we learned. I kept in touch with all those firms. We're doing more with them. Does that help?
We do have an emerging technology partner framework as well. So where SME companies, we have that kind of known white space, and we'll advertise to say that, if you've got something in this space, then you can work with us. And we've done that specifically in the north of England. We've got some amazing partners as a result of that, where we just said, look, in this space we've got opportunities. So we've got around machine learning. We've got a company that does drones that we use to fly over buildings to see whether there needs to be maintenance, for example. We're working with a company at the moment that does devices to put into bins from an Internet of Things point of view, to detect whether the bins, council bins, are full or empty, that type of thing. So when we have like known gaps, rather, CGI would never try and do that ourselves. We'll call out and see who's got something in that space that they want to bring, and then they'll go on to our emerging tech framework. We'll tell the whole of the rest of CGI in the UK about them, and then they'll get more work as a result of it. And we've been doing that now for not for that long, actually, for about 18 months, and that's working well. Prior to that, we had a program that was just too big. And the criticism is then that thousands of companies were on it, but no one got any work. And that's just wasting people's precious time, etc. So this way of having a known white space that we wanted to fill, looking for companies, finding ones that fit that, and then advertising. So we've brought them to our my executive meeting, and they've had a showcase and talked about their wares, so that everybody can say, right, got it, I know what you do, you can do that for me in this place, etc. That's working for us, and we're always looking for new companies in that to fill space.
That's that's an absolutely fantastic program. That sounds, because I know how hard it is. Like, I've been, as an SME provider in my previous roles, like the idea working with primes is so difficult. You get so little information, and the thousands, I can imagine that going wrong. And I love the idea that there's white space to fill, and you go out to the community. That's brilliant, and it's great for the small companies. It's great for the end client because they get the innovation, and it's win-win around, like you were saying, JW. Question from me: how do you ensure that intellectual property of those, because that's their lifeblood, isn't it? Of those companies, especially, I don't know, the IoT bin company. How do you reassure them? How do you make sure that their IP is not going to get stolen, like Cisco did to that poor centripetal company?
Yeah. No, culturally, CGI are not that company. So so we are very careful to protect the company's IP, and have excellent legal people who will make sure and give them advice to make sure that they lock it down properly for themselves. So we give them some of the kind of big corporate stuff that they maybe haven't got, to make sure we tighten it up for them, and that they look after their business, because their business is important to us. So we don't want them to go out of business, because that would be awkward for us as well. So we're quite good at giving some of the bits that you maybe wouldn't have if you were a little company. Without swamping them, which is the worry. We are a big company, and we could overlove them if we're not careful, which we have been accused of occasionally. So yes, we try not to. Yes.
I think your facial expression of disgust at even the point of that question was enough, Tara. Like, it's so obviously it's so culturally like unacceptable for CGI that you'd even do that. Whereas
we're in business for the long game. Whenever I speak to companies, it's about values, and if your values are close, well, actually, you've got something you can build some trust on. You only have to listen to the company owner every year talking about sort of the real values of the company. Why would I try and steal something from someone? Because I might win something in the short term, but oh my word, credibility, trust, it's gone. You've failed in the long term. We wish to grow. We've been growing on this trajectory of almost doubling in size every 3 to 5 years for our 44-year history. We want to continue doing that. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and you've been such a successful year despite all the challenges of COVID. Again, it's testament to authentic leadership, value-led leadership, as well as having a clear sense of why. You mentioned that, John, previously. It's great to hear that CGI are talking so positively internally about the need for collaboration, the need for partnership internally, and having a clear vision as to why we're here. And we've all been forced into a moment of introspection, thinking, why am I on this planet? What is the point? And actually having a company like CGI that's saying, we're here to solve difficult problems, we're here to collaborate in the right way, we're here to be competitive, but also to add real value against our value set. And I think it's such a key part for any whether it's a small business or a large business, it's something that with CyNam as well. CyNam was built on a value set around believing in the power of the community, believing that bringing people together, really interesting and fascinating things and successful things can happen, and it raises the tide for everybody, the whole community. And it's spun out into Hub 8, our new collaboration space in the middle of Cheltenham. It's now, physical manifestation with Golden Valley and all sorts of things happening. So I'm conscious of time, and I guess all I'm here to do now is to thank you, JW. JW is the head of advisory services for CGI Space Defence Intelligence. Tara McGeehan, president of CGI IT UK. Massive thank you to Paul Bentham as always. Entertaining as ever. Couldn't. I guess Immersive Labs are going to be sponsoring this as well, are they? They're going to be throwing some money in after all
similar. We might plug it on our podcast.
No, but
did I do that by accident? Sorry, I can't help myself.
Absolutely. We'll let you collaborate with CGI on that then. But no, thank you so much. We're thrilled to be talking with CGI, our gold sponsor for CyNam this year. Lots more to come in the months to follow. Have a very fantastic end to January, and we'll speak again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. Thanks.